Now we're going to talk about the security zones and a little bit about the strategy of what nuclear plants do to secure their plants. The outside area is the owner-controlled area. That isn't really designed to stop intruders. They really want to stop them inside the red area. Now that's not my plans, that's their plans. Security really gets beefed up for the vital areas of the plant. And of course, there's always this discussion of what really is vital and what is secondary, but they never resolve that to the satisfaction of everyone. And now we're going to talk about commando assaults. After the 9/11 attacks, nuclear plants were required to make a small increase to the number of guards and to build guard towers, which thankfully I've been after them for years to do that. And the guards still work too many hours in a week. And so they may go for a month working 70, 80, 90 hours a week and they burn out. And so they have to replace guards all the time. They just can't handle that. After 9/11, also the NRC had the plants put in new snipers' nests and defensive positions inside some of the protected buildings or the more vital buildings. But the shortcomings, you can see on the screen there, it says how they added more concertina wire. But there's still shortcomings, and that is the electronic detection systems and the cameras can easily be overcome by trained adversaries. And if I told you how, you'd be shocked and you'd understand just how easy it really is. The record time to simulate causing meltdown by a commando-style attack is 15 seconds. Nuclear plants are not required to guard against multiple teams of attackers. And they're not required to have guards posted at the entrance. So I thought that security upgrades would give the site protection officers the upper hand against commando attackers, one team of commando attackers. However, the new detailed aerial images that are found on the internet have changed that. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. And the vehicle bomb continues to be the most utilized form of a terrorist attack. If a bomb is close enough or powerful enough, the ground shock waves, not the waves that go through the air, but the ground shock waves overcome the earthquake proofing measures so that the pipes that go from the reactor building to the turbine building and so forth, those buildings shift at different time and at a different rate. That'll fracture those pipes and cause a loss of coolant accident. I got interested in going public, as I said, 1993 because of this vehicle intrusion. We're talking about vehicle bombs. This fellow named Pierce Nye went right through the open front entrance. He crashed through a fence and then into the turbine building door. He crashed right through it. And so the chairman of the NRC at that time said that he just came in and he didn't untie the Gordian knot. He just crashed right through it, something that no one expected. But I certainly did because I knew how bad things were down there. And when it comes to vehicle bombs, the issue is setback distances. So here we're looking at an overhead image of a nuclear plant on the West Coast. On the left, we see the distance of 475 feet to that road. That's a public road. And to the interstate, it's 675 feet. So a large bomb from the highway, the interstate, the truck would never even leave the interstate. There's no way security could find it. A large bomb could have caused a meltdown at the San Onofre nuclear plant. And I can say that now because it's shut down. But I was threatened with prison under the Patriot Act by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission if I talked about that. So I believe now that the setback distances are sufficient to guard against what size bombs are being used around the world, the largest that are being used. And we have the boat attack scenarios. They can destroy the water intake systems, deliver commandos or a bomb. And the watercraft barriers are not required at nuclear plants. So this is 3 Mile Island as seen from a satellite image. These are the old blurry images. And right in the middle of the TMI exclusion zone is a boat. So here's a photo of type of watercraft barriers used at important facilities, and the Navy uses these. Here's another one, an enhanced watercraft barrier. And we're going to talk about manned aircraft. Nuclear plants are vulnerable. It doesn't matter what they tell you. In fact, I'd rather they do tell people that they're not vulnerable until they figure out a way to defend against them. Al-Qaeda threatened to crash an explosive-laden aircraft into TMI right after the 9/11 attacks. And F-16 jets orbited TMI that evening for protection. The bottom line is we still can't prevent a 9/11 style attack against nuclear reactors. And this is a very, I got to get the quote so people can use it, the source for this. It came from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The most well-considered plans and procedures do not guarantee that the personnel will survive an aircraft impact. So what they came up with is a plan to leave the immediate area, except for a few absolutely necessary employees, and they would assemble at a predefined area outside of targeted area, the attack area. They were to extinguish lights, just like we're going back to, World War II defenses rather than 2020. And they are supposed to get their water inventories up, to make up water, to start filling those tanks if they're down. And the same with the water heaters that have to heat the water so that when you inject it into the reactor, it doesn't shock the system. Let's talk about the insider threat. And that was the one I was the most interested in from the beginning. I forget who did the study, but I'm sure the NRC was involved. Who would sabotage a nuclear plant? What type of people? And so they came up with some of these groups like the religious or political zealots, disgruntled employees, environmental extremists. You can read them there for yourself. And the number one was the religious or political zealots, is who they thought would attack a nuclear plant. This is the descending order of who they suspected the most. In the real world, turned out to be disgruntled employees. And I always thought that was just unbelievable. And they have by far damaged or disabled equipment more than any other characters as profiled.
Message from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to every nuclear power plant in the country. Beware of sabotage from within by disgruntled employees. The Washington Post reports the NRC warned that such potentially dangerous insider attacks are on the increase and said that most plant managers are not fully prepared to cope with them.
So why did he say that? What was going on? Well, in 1979, in fact, this is only 10 days after the 3 Mile Island accident began, someone poured sodium hydroxide into 64 new fuel assemblies. And it turned out that it was 2 reactor operators who were protesting lax nuclear safety. And they wanted to show that malicious attackers had time to perform even more destructive actions. Then in Turkey Point, this is April 2006, someone drilled holes into pipes. The pipes are part of a safety system used to maintain reactor pressure. At the McGuire, North Carolina plants, December 97, all 8 reactor door airlock seals are slashed. That's to prevent particles from going outside the reactor while workers are going in. The emergency diesel generators were sabotaged at San Onofre 2012. The engine coolant was poured into the oil reserve. The FBI investigated to no avail. So a lot of these acts aren't really designed to disperse radiation. They're just to get back at the company. But a few of them have been. I'm familiar with maybe about 10 of them, where if there had been a serious problem, these systems, backup systems, would not have been available, including someone pouring glue into a backup control panel. They poured the glue into the key switches so that the operators would not have been able to bring the plant back under control. So insider sabotage is still a very worrisome problem since it's considered unstoppable if perpetrated by a determined individual. Now that the cyber threats are realistic, that's almost like being an insider. There's already been more than 150 acts of insider sabotage at U.S. plants, and there's still no 2-man rule as was proposed in the 1970s, because that would double the pay needed for the workforce. And if you combine the outsider attack with insider assistance, it really ratchets up the dangers. All the problems with security being made public started here in 1975 at 3 Mile Island, where these 2 guards met with Ralph Nader and told him that it'd be easy for a lone saboteur to gain entry into the operating reactor and hold it over the country's or area's head. That's the quote from the one guard. Ralph Nader in 1975 went before the nation and said that nuclear plant security is a sham, and he called for a congressional investigation. The next year, somebody at 3 Mile Island drove into the plant and he climbed on top of the reactor building somehow, or got to the top of the reactor building, and that's where they heard him singing. He was never caught. And then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, with all the pressure and things going on wrong, They decided in 1976 to do their own special inspections of 43 nuclear power plants. Well, that was all that were running at that time, and weaknesses were found at each one. The result of that inquiry that Nader requested was the study that was called Nuclear Plant Security Inadequate at Best. And one of the chapters was, why has the NRC program for security and nuclear power plants failed? Then when the 3 Mile Island accident happened, there was suspicions of sabotage. I could go on for hours about that, actually, but because I've done 44,000 pages of research on this topic alone. The President's Commission did ask the FBI to do a sabotage investigation by an insider because of the things that they found, which the NRC had not been reporting. And this was from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, talking about the security status at 3 Mile Island. Look at the middle quote there, where it says, actually, there was very poor protection against the sabotage actions of the insider. So to this day, I still have a lot of evidence and believe that sabotage was responsible for the beginning of that problem.
Last year, the nuclear plant at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania had a nuclear problem. This year, it's got a security problem. An enterprising reporter from a local paper penetrated the plant's security as though it never existed. Al Johnson has the details.
The big story? How a 26-year-old reporter on his first assignment using phony identification got a job as a guard on 3 Mile Island. Robert Kapler's security badges allowed him to go everywhere. He had a camera hidden on him. He got into and took a picture of the control room of Reactor 2, the site of the accident last March. He said the door was left unlocked. Kapler said it was easy to get the job, easy to be an imposter.
3 Mile Island as a nuclear facility is wide open for sabotage. It was wide open before the March 28th accident, and for all intents and purposes, it's wide open for sabotage right now.
That was in 1980. The newspaper headline that it showed in there said, TMI, Paradise Island for the saboteur.